Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this amazing spiritual tapestry unfolding over centuries in Tamil Nadu.
Mm,
It's not just about monks up on mountains. We're talking farmers, kings, poets, just, a whole spectrum of people.
right.
And it's all captured in this one incredible text, the Periya Puranam.
And what really jumps out, I think, about the Periya Puranam Sekisar compiled it is exactly that, the sheer breadth of it.
Yeah,
It tells the stories of 63 Saiva saints, the Nayanmars, but it's more than just history, isn't it?
definitely more.
It's this powerful picture of how intense devotion, bhakti, to Lord Svinashiva can just show up in all these incredibly different lives.
Absolutely. And when you look at the sources, you see this amazing variety. Temple priests right alongside chieftains,
Uh-huh.
Vedic scholars, fishermen. I mean, even poets and merchants are in there.
Yeah, Karyar the poet, Kanampulir the merchant.
It really makes you think how, I guess, how deeply this devotion was just part of the culture, part of Talmud society.
Mm.
What strikes you most about that diversity right off the bat?
Well, it's interesting how it just sort of challenges any narrow idea of what a spiritual path looks like.
Right.
You've got people like Fandiadigal, blind from birth, and then there's this Pulavan, a poet whose community, well, the text mentions, they ate meat from dead cows,
Wow, okay.
which is, pretty different from your standard ideas of purity or asceticism.
Completely.
And the text even makes a point of distinguishing them from someone like Thirumular, who was known for really intense yoga.
Well, okay.
So it suggests the path wasn't about like one specific set of outward actions.
So it wasn't necessarily about harsh rituals or, extreme self-denial for everyone.
Exactly. The Periya Puranam really emphasizes that mukti, liberation, it wasn't handed out based on your actions or your social rank.
Hmm.
Instead, the story suggests the key thing was the love, the love in their hearts.
That's powerful.
Yeah, there's this lovely comparison to how Lord Krishna valued Kuchalar's simple puffed rice.
Right. The simple offering.
And similarly, Lord Sivan cherished, the fisherman's love called it, the nectar called his love, more than his actual catch, and eventually rewards him with this amazing golden fish studded with gems.
Wow.
It tells you something really profound about what actually counts, doesn't it?
It really does. And this is where it gets super interesting for me. This idea of love as the engine.
Yeah.
Our sources call this devotion more than human. It kind of reminds me of that Khalil Gibran image.
Now the wheat.
Yeah. Love as this process gathering, threshing, grinding you down.
Sifting, kneading.
Right. To become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. It's such a powerful metaphor for transformation.
It really is. It captures the intensity of this love perfectly. It's not passive. It's this deep, often tough process.
And the text suggests it takes lifetimes even.
That's the idea. Manika Sekar puts it beautifully. He talks about God falling into the net called love. It gives you this sense of the divine being drawn in by that human devotion.
So love is really the common thread here, running through all these different lives.
It absolutely seems to be the central path.
Yeah.
Now, Sanatana Dharma talks about different ways to connect with the divine, right?
The servant, the son.
Exactly. Servant, son, companion, knower of God, different margas. But the Periya Puranam, it really shines a light on bhakti, the path of love.
And the kind of liberation, mukti, might differ too.
That's part of it. So for the path of the servant, the outcome is often described as samipam, being close to the Lord, an intimate connection through service.
Okay. And you mentioned the path of the companion. What's that about?
Yes, the sahamargam. That's more about internal contemplation, using things like sense control, breath regulation to really focus on the divine effulgence, the radiant wholeness of God. We see hints of that too.
Okay, this is fascinating. To really get a feel for it, maybe we should look at some specific stories.
Definitely.
How about Sonaramurthy Swamigal, Sundar? His story kicks off in a pretty unusual way, doesn't it?
It really does. What's so intriguing is this backstory, him being a Lasandar in heaven.
Right.
And the narrative suggests a fall to earth because of, well, a moment of indulgence.
Just a moment.
Seems so. It hints that even in, higher realms, choices matter. And it sets up this really unique relationship he has with Saban in his human life.
And that first meeting on Earth, definitely not your typical divine encounter.
Not at all. Sivan turns up as this old Brahmin, crashes Sundar's wedding.
Really tears up the marriage contract.
Exactly. And basically claims Sundar as his slave. It's quite dramatic.
No wonder they called him Van Thonden.
The rowdy devotee.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was so direct, even bold, in how he talked to Sivan. It shows this really personal, almost argumentative closeness.
And their relationship had these surprisingly human moments too, didn't it? Sundar asking for gold, rice.
Yeah, apparently sometimes testing Savan's generosity to keep his wife Periya happy.
It makes him seem so real.
It does. This human dimension is key. He wasn't some detached ascetic. He was dealing with family life, relationships, while having this intense divine connection.
And his wives, Paravayar, Rudrakanikayar, dedicated to the temple.
And Sangiliar from the fourth caste.
Right. That also seems to push against usual social boundaries.
Absolutely. It suggests that within this sphere of intense devotion, those lines could blur.
It's just fascinating how hands-on Savan is shown to be,
Hmm.
mediating arguments between Sundar and Paravayar.
I know. It's incredible. Or showing up as a tired old Brahmin to give Sundar food and water when he's starving.
Such a moving image of divine care disguised.
These interventions, they really drive home that divine grace is always there for the devotee.
Always available.
And we see other miracles too. Sundar getting his sight back in one eye after praying.
And that unique rebirth without dying. Sarupyamukti.
Yes, attaining a form resembling the divine while still on earth. It's quite extraordinary.
He even prayed for the ability to follow the pathway of yoga, connecting back to that companion path.
Right, seeking that deeper connection.
And the story of him raising a dead child back to life, that's just astonishing. A testament to faith.
To unwavering faith and immense compassion, yes. It's shown as a direct result of his connection with the divine, a power granted through devotion.
And his end. Going to Kailasa on Indra's elephant. Quite the exit.
A fittingly grand departure for such a unique life, definitely.
Okay, let's shift to Thiruna Sambandar, often called the Son of God. His birth itself is presented as something special, right?
Very special. The idea is he's an Isvarakoti,
Meaning?
meaning a soul so advanced he doesn't need to be born into the cycle of birth and death, but chooses to, out of compassion.
Wow. So he arrived with wisdom.
That's the narrative. Innate knowledge right from the start. Tamil grammar, poetry, music, Sanskrit, Vedas, Agamas, all as a child.
Incredible. This idea of divine grace bestowing wisdom so young.
It's a powerful theme. And then he travels extensively, doesn't he?
All over Tamil Nadu, visiting shrines, singing hymns.
These devotional songs, the decades. He composed so many, though sadly many are lost.
And his poetry has a particular quality.
Yes, often the sense of wonder, a childlike perspective almost. Seeing the divine in ways adults might overlook, very fresh.
And he really emphasized the mystic 5 letters, Namachi Vaya.
He saw that mantra as the absolute core of the Vedas, a powerful, accessible way to connect with Savan.
He also met Apar, the rune of Ukarasar.
Yes, they traveled together sometimes. And Sambandhar showed great compassion too, like healing a girl with a serious illness, Miolakam.
There are also stories of Sivan intervening directly for him, like providing gold coins.
Right, when his father needed funds for a velavi, a ritual sacrifice. Again, it shows that supportive, intimate relationship.
And his role in Pandinadu, challenging Jainism, the miracle with the palm leaves.
A key episode. The story goes his devotional verses, written on palm leaves, floated against the river current while the Jain texts were swept away.
Wow, faith overcoming the odds.
Guided by devotion, yes. And perhaps the most stunning miracle attributed to him is reviving Pumbavai just from her bones and ashes, using a sacred verse.
Just unbelievable, the power of devotion and grace.
An extraordinary demonstration.
And even his marriage is seen as part of the divine plan.
Exactly. Not a distraction, but a path ordained for him by Sivan.
Okay, let's talk about Apar now, the rune of Ukarasar. His journey started differently, didn't it? He was initially a Jain.
He was, yes. Spent time in a Jain monastery. Then he suffered from this terrible colic.
Which the story presents as divine intervention.
That's how it's framed. It led him back to Saivism. And his path then became one of incredible humility and service.
The cleaning of the temple courtyards.
Famously, yes. Using a small hoe to clear the paths for devotees. Really embodying that path of the servant.
And that amazing story about Aputhiyatakal.
Oh, yes. Such a powerful illustration of the glory of service.
Remind us.
Aputhi was a Brahmin, so devoted to Apar, even though he'd never met him, that he named his sons, his water booths, everything after Apar.
Just out of reverence.
Pure reverence. And when his son is bitten by a snake and dies, Apar, arriving by chance, brings the boy back to life through his devotional power.
Highlighting the power flowing through that dedicated service.
Exactly. And Apar himself is said to have reached a state where he saw everything, all of creation, as God, as Sivan.
A profound vision. And his hymns, his Tamil verses.
Hugely important, considered incredibly powerful expressions of his spiritual journey and experiences.
He also believed strongly in respecting all devotees.
Absolutely. He stated very clearly that anyone truly devoted to Sivan, no matter their birth or background, was worthy of worship.
That's radical for the time.
It certainly challenged social hierarchies, and his attempt to reach Mount Kailasa,
By crawling.
yes, crawling on his hands and knees when his legs failed him. Just an incredible display of sheer determination and devotion.
These stories are so intense.
Mm.
Now, Thirumolar, his focus seems a bit different, more philosophical.
Somewhat, yes. His work, the Thirumandaram, presents Sivan as the ultimate reality, as Brahman, but he also stresses mercy, compassion, Anbu, and Arul.
And his view of Mayai, not just illusion.
Right. He sees Maya not simply as illusion, but as the fundamental stuff of the universe, the matrix of matter, existing alongside God, coeval with God.
Interesting. And he emphasizes the body.
Very much so. The body as a temple, essential for spiritual practice, especially yoga.
Didn't he also talk about different ways of chanting mantras?
Yes, including silent internal repetition, like Soham, I am he, focused on that inner realization.
Wow. Okay. There are so many other saints mentioned in the Periya Puranam. Maybe we could just touch on a few more briefly, just to show the incredible range.
Good idea.
Yeah.
The diversity is really key. For instance, you have Yarpakai.
What's his story?
He demonstrated absolute selfless giving by giving his own wife away when Lord Sivan appeared in disguise and asked for her.
That's extreme detachment.
It is. And Manikanjaranar gave away his daughter's beautiful hair right before her wedding, again to Sivan in disguise, symbolizing non-attachment.
And Sharutha Thondar.
Willingness to sacrifice his only son when Sivan, disguised as a wandering Saiva ascetic, requested it for a meal, testing ultimate surrender.
These tests are intense. What about virtues like honesty?
Amarnathi Nayanar is a great example. His unwavering honesty about a dhoti weighed against Sivan's loincloth Sivan, disguised as a Brahmin, of course. Integrity above all.
And chastity within marriage.
Through Neelakanta Nayanar. He and his wife took a vow of chastity, never touching each other after a misunderstanding involving the Lord's name. Righteous conduct.
Then there's fierce loyalty, like Arapathar.
Oh, yes. He fiercely defended a devotee whose flowers for Sivan were scattered by the king's elephant, didn't hesitate to challenge the king's power. Unwavering loyalty.
Even kings could be devotees, right? Like
Yeah.
Ayatollah Kadavarkhan.
Exactly. He was a king who felt that serving Haran Shavan and even receiving alms was superior to his kingship. Deep humility.
And Namanandiatical lighting lamps with water.
A famous miracle. Challenged by Jains, his faith allowed him to light the temple lamps using pond water instead of ghee, faith overcoming logic.
What about simple dedicated service?
Murthy Nayanar. His devotion was grinding sandalwood paste for Shivan every single day, even when his arms were worn down. Incredible dedication.
Hospitality seems important too.
Hugely. Look at Dayan offering his wife's thali, her sacred marriage necklace, to buy food for devotees during a famine.
Wow.
Or Ilyankudi Maran, who would go to any length, day or night, to feed visiting devotees. Tireless hospitality.
Some stories involve quite extreme actions, like Katpuliyar.
His commitment was absolute. He stored paddy specifically for Sivan's offerings, and when his own relatives used it during a famine, he killed them. Fierce, unwavering commitment to the divine share.
And Sandaswar.
Another example of single-minded focus. As a boy, absorbed in worshiping a lingam he made of sand, he didn't notice his father approaching. When his father kicked the milk offering, Sandaswar instinctively cut off his father's foot with an axe.
Just intense focus on the worship.
Rewarded by Sivan, who made him chief of his attendants.
Then there's Kanapar, the hunter. His devotion was unconventional, wasn't it?
Very. Thinapen, the hunter. He offered Sivan meat he'd hunted, tasting it first to ensure it was good. He used water held in his mouth for the abhishekam, the sacred bath. Used his own eyes to replace the bleeding eyes on the lingam.
Actions that would seem totally wrong by ritual standards?
But Sivan accepted them because they came from pure, unadulterated love. Love over ritual, absolutely.
We also see women playing key roles. Queens.
Yes, Mangayarkarasyar, the Pandian queen who supported Saivism and welcomed Sambandar, and the king himself, Ninrasir Nadumarar, who converted from Jainism, righteous leadership.
And devotion within families. Thirunelanakar testing his wife.
A complex story involving a spider falling on his wife during worship and his reaction testing her focus and fidelity with divine intervention confirming it shows the complexities.
And Thrunali Puvar, Nandanar, from a marginalized community.
A hugely significant story. Nandar faced social barriers, couldn't even enter the temple precincts initially. But his intense longing and devotion led Sivan to command the priests to purify him through fire.
And he emerged transformed.
Yes, transformed and merged with the divine, a powerful statement that devotion transcends all social hierarchy.
Even anger and reconciliation are part of the path, like Yarkan Kali Kaminar.
Right. He was initially furious with Sundar for sending Sivan himself as a messenger on a personal errand.
Seems reasonable.
But Sivan intervened, causing Kalikamanar illness, which only Sundar could cure, leading to their reconciliation. It shows the human side, the misunderstandings, and the divine play involved.
And respecting fellow devotees, Virunmindar.
He took a very strong stance, declared that anyone who didn't respect Sivan's devotees was outside the fold, even refusing to acknowledge Sundar until he sang praises of the assembled devotees. Importance of community.
There are even saints who chose death rather than harm someone disguised as a devotee.
Yes, may Purl Nayanar, Pukashola Nayanar, Natha Nayanar, they upheld the sanctity of the Saiva devotees' appearance above their own lives. Extreme reverence.
And Kutravanayar, the king who got Sivan's feet as his crown.
In a dream, yes. Denied a coronation by the Chidambaram priests, Sivan himself bestowed spiritual sovereignty upon him. Divine grace.
We should also mention Aise Ñaniyar.
Stunnar's mother, yes, honored simply for being the mother of such a great devotee.
And Filikavathi, Apar's sister.
Crucial in his life. Her prayers were instrumental in bringing him back to Saivism from Jainism. Shows the role of family.
It's just such an incredible range of human lives, all connected by this thread of devotion.
It really is. The Periya Puranam shows devotion isn't one size fits all. It bursts out in countless ways, not tied to status, not tied to specific rituals, always.
The key is
Sincere love, complete surrender. That seems to be the essence.
divine grace is always there for them.
Constantly intervening, guiding, testing, rewarding. And the path isn't always easy. It involves intense experiences, challenges, sometimes actions that seem totally wild from the outside.
And serving other devotees is a big part of it, too.
A very significant form of worship in itself, yes.
So if we were to sum it all up, what's the core message from this deep dive into the Periya Puranam?
I think it offers this just breathtaking view of human lives woven through with this profound, enduring love for the divine. And it demonstrates so powerfully that the path to, spiritual realization, it's open. It's accessible to absolutely everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do, where you come from.
And these aren't just dusty old stories, are they? They still speak to us.
Absolutely. Their relevance feels timeless. They keep inspiring people, offering these deep insights into faith, into love, into that whole connection between us and the divine.
So as you're listening, maybe think about this. Out of all these diverse lives, these different ways of expressing devotion, which part really clicks with you? Which story, or maybe which aspect of devotion resonates the most? How could these ancient stories maybe shed light on your own path, your own search for meaning? Perhaps digging into a full translation of the Periya Puranam might be the next step to explore these really captivating lives even more deeply.